When do we use in spite or despite? We're going to be talking about these two prepositional phrases, when to use them, when not, and how to use them today. What's up? You're watching Tito Talks English Mondays, once again with your favorite Tito Miguel, who loves to make English discussions easier to understand for both agents and clients. Magandang Monday po sa ating lahat. Thank you so much for passing by once again to our little corner on YouTube to talk about another very interesting English lesson with us once again. And just a quick reminder, if you find these type of lessons and lectures very beneficial for you, find them relevant, if you find them useful, please consider subscribing to the channel so that we could grow and reach more people and help empower your written and spoken command of the English language for free. Now, with that being said, let's go on to our topic for today. And I do believe it's a very interesting topic as we are talking about two very, very interesting prepositional phrases. And these prepositional phrases are in spite of and despite. And there has been a point of contestation as to when to use one over the other. Do I use in spite of or do I use despite? When do I use them? How do I use them? And we're going to get into detail about these things in today's video. But before that, it's very important for us first to understand what prepositional phrases are. And in short, and the simple of it, is that prepositional phrases are phrases containing prepositions. Ta-da! No, I'm just kidding. But it is true. Prepositional phrases are groups of words clumped together, mostly containing a preposition that actually connects a dependent clause to your original sentence, which is an independent clause. With that being said, the dependent clause actually complements the idea of the independent clause, either by providing more details, either by providing a contrasting idea, either by providing contestation, or simply by further describing the events happening in the independent clause. Now, with that being said, there are a lot of prepositional phrases that you can use to add more detail to your sentence and to add more flexibility to the way that you express yourself. Two of these very popular prepositional phrases are in spite of and despite. And the funny thing about them is they're actually used for the same purpose. Yes, that's right. They're both used for the same purpose. That purpose being introducing a contradicting idea to your original independent clause. Let me give you guys an example. He managed to arrive despite bad weather. Now let's deconstruct this sentence to help you guys out. There is an independent clause here and a dependent clause, and as well as the prepositional phrase. Now, if you've guessed right, our prepositional phrase here is despite bad weather. So that is your dependent clause, meaning it cannot stand alone. It needs to be connected to an independent clause for it to have meaning, for it to have purpose. That means your independent clause would be he managed to arrive, which if you leave it all alone by himself is already a complete thought in its own. You can already put a period there and it'll already be a full sentence. You get the idea, you know exactly what happened. He managed to arrive. Again, going back to what we said earlier, the dependent clause here being despite bad weather cannot stand on its own, but if attached to the independent clause, completes or creates a new sentence with additional details. A while ago, we just said that he managed to arrive. Now, we're saying that he managed to arrive even if there were conditions that were preventing him from doing so, that being bad weather. Now, with that being said, despite and in spite can be used interchangeably in this sense. That means you can use despite or in spite in the same sentence. Let's use in spite in this case. He managed to arrive in spite of bad weather. So as you can see, the thought still remains. It didn't change in any aspect. It just changed in the form. Instead of using despite, you used in spite of. So the thought remains the same, the function remains the same, i.e., you've got the dependent clause being attached to an independent clause, thus completing the full thought. And here, you'll notice that these two, although they are used in the same purpose and in the same way, they can be used in various circumstances. You can attach them to either a noun or a gerund. And a gerund, and when we say the term gerund, that means it's a verb in its ing form, like running, hitting, hating, bashing, destroying, obliterating. So many words you could think of. But in short, gerunds are verbs in their ing form, meaning you're going to be using them in their present progressive tense. So you're running, you're obliterating, you're destroying, defecating, whatever it is that you're doing. So let's try another sentence with gerund forms. Check this out. He still won the election despite having criminal records. Let's try that with in spite. He won the election in spite of having criminal records. So I hope you can see the structure here. Another independent clause is further explained with a dependent clause that cannot stand on its own, but when attached, it provides more detail to the original sentence. With that being said, now that we've got examples with nouns and with gerunds, it's also very important that we talk about their differences. While it's true that they're both used in the same aspect and in the same function, executing them is a completely different matter. Now, the prepositional phrase despite or the preposition despite can be used on its own. No need for any connecting words whatsoever. In our example earlier, he managed to arrive despite bad weather. You can see that despite already stood on its own and it could adequately connect both clauses to each other. However, when you're using in spite, which is already two words, you'll need one more word to complete your three-word combination, which is the word of. Say that with me one more time. Of. Now, whenever you're using in spite, they're never used as it is. You'll always need to use the word of. In spite of. Say that with me one more time. In spite of. So, whenever you're using the prepositional phrase in spite, always add the word of. Going back to our example, let's try that one more time. He managed to arrive in spite of bad weather. Let's do the same thing with the gerund example that we have. He won the election in spite of having criminal records. So be very, very careful when you're using these two. Although they're used in the same sense and in the same function, executing them is quite different. One of them can be used alone, the other has to be used in its three parts in continuity, in their wholeness. You really can't use it alone, or you really can't use one without the other. I hope you enjoyed this lesson as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you this Monday evening. Once again, if you find this type of content useful, please consider subscribing to our channel. Help us grow. Help us reach more agents and individuals that want to power up and step up their English language game to reach more people. Thank you so much again for joining. Once again, this is your favorite Tito Miguel, always saying, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.